So thank you guys for being here. We're going to be talking about admissions exams and how to prep on a budget. And it's important as we're going over that we all make sure we're on the same page when it comes to what's required for different exams. So we'll be briefly going over some of the content that is tested on the most common admissions exams and what you need to make sure you have in front of you, some of the must-haves, some of the recommended, and some of the ways that you can save some money as you're looking at prep. My name is Chantel Isaacs. I'm a program specialist for Kaplan. I started with Kaplan 3 years ago as a teacher. I actually started with SAT prep, or working with high school students who were looking at taking the SAT to get into college. And I then moved into a consulting position. They trained me up on all of these other admissions exams, MCAT, DAT, OATP, CAT, GRE, the whole shebang. So I've counseled thousands of students at this point on what their prep looks like, what resources are available, what they need to be thinking about. I've redirected some people away from some really bad plans. Now I've been moved into this position where I work with universities across the country, going and speaking at events like this, working with student organizations to provide information and resources to them. So that is a little bit about me. But I want to get started by asking kind of a hypothetical question of what are your plans? Like, in talking before we got started here, you both said that you know which exam it is you're looking to take, and you know about when you're needing to take it. But it's also important to note, what is it that you need to do to achieve those plans, right? Is it becoming a doctor? Is it becoming a dentist? Is it becoming a PA? Like, having that goal out in front of you is really important, because everything that you're doing right now is leading you forward on this path to what that ultimate goal is. So it's really important to keep that whole journey out in front of you in perspective, and not just be like, okay, I'm in this stage right now and I need to do this. This is all a piece of a larger journey. So this is specifically for medical school, but it tracks pretty closely to other routes, right? Where you're at right now in undergrad or a post-bac program, that sort of thing, you are in this early stage where you're just thinking about applying into these programs, right? You have this whole journey out in front of you before you've actually achieved that title of I am now a physician, or I am now a PA, or I am now a dentist, what have you. So it's really important that you keep this whole journey out in front of you and know that what you're doing right now is investing in these next steps, right? It's not just, okay, I need to take this test. The reasons these tests exist is because they've been designed to predict your future success. And also, how you do on these tests is a big part of getting into these programs, right? So when you're thinking about, all right, I know that I need to apply, you're here, you know that you have to write a personal statement, you have to share the experiences that you have to have letters of recommendation. You need your GPA and your transcripts. Hopefully that's something that you've been able to keep up, because you know that this is something that needs a high GPA to get into places. And you also need a test score. So GPA and test score are bolded here because they are two quantitative pieces of data that they can look at those numbers that represent you and your academic success. Your GPA is an indicator of your past academic success, right? You've done all these years of school. This is how you did in your classes. And by the time you're ready to apply, there isn't too much you can do about your GPA. It's all in the past, and this is where you're at. Like, that past journey has led you here. And now your test score is an indicator of your future academic success. These different tests have been around for different amounts of time. They've gone through a lot of different iterations over the years. But the MCAT, just a little piece of history, if you think about what it was like 80 years ago to get into, or even 100 years ago, to get into a medical school, it was very, it didn't really have to do as much with your academics. It had to do with can you pay the tuition and who do you know? Like, oh, did your dad go here? Did somebody in your family pay to have this library built? You know, there was a lot of nepotism. It was very white dominated. It was very male dominated, with not very many exceptions. And this was before the MCAT existed. Before the MCAT came into place, and this was how admittance happened, 1 in 5 people did not complete their first year of med school. 20% of people did not complete their first year. And that is a lot of seats that could have gone to more more profitable, students, like the people who had the academic background, who could withstand that rigor, who had the drive to go and be a doctor, more than just, oh, I can be here and this is what my family expects of me, right? So 1 in 5, 20% of people. The MCAT was introduced as a standardized exam to measure academic ability. And after it was introduced in about the 1940s, they did the study again, and it had reduced significantly to 1 in 10. 1 in 10 people did not complete their first year. That was like 80 years ago, right? Medicine has changed a lot since the 1940s. Med school has changed a lot. The MCAT has changed a lot and has gone through a lot of iteration. But today, the failure rate of first-year med students is less than 2%. And that is largely due to non-academic factors. They have honed this exam to be a predictor of future academic success in a medical school curriculum. And that is what a lot of these exams are doing. What the skills that you are building and preparing for these exams, be it the MCAT or otherwise, these are skills that are not just for this one test. These are skills that are going to carry forward into these graduate level programs, these other health professions programs. So when it comes to what is necessary to get admitted, there's a lot of pieces. Like all of these are necessary pieces of an application. But med school admissions officers, and this is data from med schools, I don't have data from other pre-health programs, but med school admissions say that the MCAT is the most important factor in the med school admissions process. 1, because it is that predictor of future academic success, and 2, because it is standardized, so they can look at any 2 applicants from wherever they are and say, okay, I now know what their capacity is, right? It is a standardized platform that they can look at and they know what they're going to get with these students. It's an apples to apples comparison. GPA, you'd like to think that it is, but someone going to UCLA versus someone going to, I don't know, University of Kansas, how do those 2 GPAs match up? That's something that they can maybe do some evaluation, but there's a lot of, give and take there with different quality of professors and rigor of programs. So the MCAT or any of these standardized test scores are really designed to be that standardized measurement of students when they're comparing them for admittance for a very small number of seats for these programs. So we're going to breeze through a couple of the some of the information. Since we have people here for med school and PA programs, we're going to specifically look at those. So for med school, it's important as you're thinking about what you need to do to achieve your goals, you need to know what that timeline looks like and when you need to have certain things done. So when it comes to the med school admissions timeline, the MCAT is offered in January and then March through September of every calendar year. So if you are going to be applying to med school, ideally you want to be applying in as soon as applications open in May or June, depending on if you're applying to DO programs. If you're a Texas applicant, the Texas application system is unique just for the state of Texas, and that opens in May. The AMCAS, which is probably the most popular one and is for MD schools, opens in June. The sooner you get your application in, it's a rolling admissions process. That means if you are one of the first people to apply, then you are at the top of the stack. If only 10 people apply before you and you're 11th in line, then everybody else who applies is below you in line when it comes to evaluating your application. So rolling admissions is something to be aware of. It's really recommended to get your application in as soon as possible. The sooner you get that in too, the sooner it is verified, sent to schools, and then they can evaluate if they want to send you secondaries and keep moving you through the process. So there is an alignment with the sooner you apply, the sooner the next steps will come, and the sooner you will likely get acceptance letters as you move through that process too, as opposed to needing to wait until the spring of next year to find out if you got in. So knowing that you need to submit your applications, I will say June is just the standard month timeline. You want to be submitting those in June. That means you want your MCAT scores before that, right? You want to know what your scores are. You want to know what that score and GPA combination, what schools are the most likely to accept that, so you can be strategic about what schools you're applying to. So make sure that you're looking at those factors and that you're taking your MCAT before then. So prepping and taking for your MCAT, most students spend about 300 to 350 is what we at Kaplan recommend in prep. over the course of 3 to 4 months. And we'll talk about scheduling a little bit later, but that's an important timeline to be have in your head of like, okay, maybe it's a set number of hours that I'm thinking about. And if I need to spread that out over a longer period of time, okay, but think not, instead of saying I need to study for 3 months for this test, studying for 3 months for any test is going to look different student to student, right? Because we all have different commitments. We all have different things on our plate. We all have different life things that come up with us, family expectancies, school that is really hard for us. So I like to think about prep in a number of hours that you're putting into it, not necessarily in a number of like weeks or months. The MCAT is split into 4 sections. Each section is 95 minutes long for the science sections, and then the critical analysis and reasoning skills section is 90 minutes long. So in total, you're looking at about 7.5 hours of testing, and that includes the breaks that are in there. It's a long test. It is the beast of all of these exams. It's important to look at this though, and these are the full titles of each of the sections. Each of these science sections have something in common. Can any of you point out what it is?
Biological systems.
Yes, they all mention bio. And so it's really important to note that with these sections, the science sections of this test, they're not just testing you on, like the first one, they're not just testing you on chemistry and physics. They're testing how that is applied in a biological system. So MCAT is designed to test you on how you are able to integrate the sciences together. So this is of the sciences, the science sections, this is what it ends up breaking down with the science that is covered. Biological and biochemical foundations, you've got like 4 science subjects that are going to be tested in that section. Chemical and physical foundations, you're looking at 5 sciences. And then psychological, social, and biological foundations, you have 3. And this is the, if you're looking at how those sciences are broken up over the entire test, this is about what we're looking at. People are usually surprised by just how much psychology is made up, the test is made up of. It's 20% of the test that you need to have psychology knowledge for. And people are usually a little relieved when they see that organic chemistry and physics are the smallest pieces of the MCAT. They're still really important though, because you need to have that knowledge and how that integrates into these larger sections. Nothing is ever isolated on its own. I like to give the example of you may be in the chem phys section of the test and you're asked a question about the cardiovascular system. And you're like, the cardiovascular system, that's a biological, like that's something we learn about in bio, that's a bio topic. Why is this in the chem phys section? But the question is framed around what is the fluid dynamics of blood flowing through this person after they've taken a certain medication, right? And you have to think about it. Okay, the heart is a pump and our veins and arteries are just tubes and blood is a fluid. It's talking about this physics topic wrapped up in a biological question. So you want to begin thinking about, and as you study, practicing things that are going to integrate those sciences. We'll come back to that a little bit later. We don't have anybody here for DAT, OAT, or PCAT, so let's jump down to Physician Assistant School. The PA school, the GRE has traditionally been the exam that is used for admittance into PA programs. That is looking like it's going to be changing in the next couple of years. And some schools are already changing that. The PA CAT is coming onto the scene and it is ruffling some feathers, and largely because the GRE has 0 science on it and the PA CAT is almost entirely science. So schools are looking at it and saying, okay, is this a better method of us evaluating students' capacity for understanding sciences in these programs? Whereas the GRE is, I like to call it the SAT of grad school. The GRE is used for admittance into pretty much all master's level programs, right? Except for like business school, law school. So it is, anybody can take the GRE. And that means that what you have focused on in undergrad, that almost goes out the window because the GRE is meant to just evaluate everybody on certain topics moving forward. So it's important to know that it's not necessarily a measure of your ability for success in PA school, but it is a measure of your ability to take information. Can you retain this? How well are you able to test this? There are an analytical reasoning skills that come through here. There are communication skills that come through in the verbal section. So Those are important things to note, that they are able to evaluate your skills on those areas, but your science knowledge is not going to be tested here in the GRE. So GRE timeline, the GRE is offered almost every day of the year at Prometrics testing centers. Do your research about how COVID is changing, what centers are open, if testing at home is still available for you. That is all also changing almost on a week-to-week basis now. So make sure you do your research about what that looks like. But the ideal time to prep for the GRE is sometime in the summer before your senior year, if you're not planning on taking a gap year. So that is something that is about, like, you want to make sure you're evaluating too, because prepping over the summer before your senior year means that you can then take your exam in early fall or late summer before your senior year or of your senior year, because then you have that score and you're ready to apply when those applications open. Unlike medical school, different PA programs may or may not practice rolling admissions. So it's not getting that in as early as possible, may or may not be a strategic move depending on the schools you're applying to. Make sure you're doing your research about the different programs and what their admissions process looks like, because there's less of a standard across the board for all of them. So make sure you do your research. The GRE is made up of 5 sections, and the GRE is adaptive, meaning how you do in the first section will determine how hard the next one is. So if you're doing really great in the quantitative section, the first one that comes across your computer screen, and then all of a sudden the next one comes up and the questions are a lot harder, congrats, that means they put you into the harder option for the second section as opposed to the less hard option for the second section. So you want to make sure that as you are practicing, you're practicing using adaptive tests. So there are adaptive tests available through ETS. That's the website that you can go to learn about the GRE and all their resources. But make sure that you are practicing using adaptive tests and also testing yourself on that harder content as you keep moving forward. There are 2 essays as well as part of this for analytical writing. So again, that's a test of communication on this exam. How are you able to communicate in written words, which is an important part of a health profession too. How are you taking notes? How are you writing about the patients that you're seeing? That kind of thing. So that's our brief overview of MCAT and GRE. Do we have questions before we keep moving forward? Or thumbs up if we're good to keep moving. Wonderful. So we've figured out, we've established, okay, you know what your plans are. Now it's a question of what is it that you need to achieve those plans, right? It's not just what do you need to do. You know you need to take these tests. You now have some more information about what's on them, what that looks like. But now it's a matter of resources, right? What do you need? So here is my list of must-haves, and this is the same for every single test. First thing, make sure you are familiar with the test taker website. They're going to have information on what it looks like to be a candidate to take this test, what information there is about registering, costs of that, all of that information is going to be on there. The AAMC website also has information on all of the testable content that's on the test as well. So make sure you're really familiar with the test taker website and what materials they have. They may have free resources on there depending on the exam that you're looking at taking, all of that. Kaplan has free study guides that are available for you as well. So one of the things that you can do is, I'm going to put this in the chat for you. You go to kaptest.com/study. These are some free materials and study guides that are available that can break down information on even timeline. I know for the MCAT, we have 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, and 6 month study guides. So based on the amount of time that you have, that can help be a great resource to just get you organized around, all right, have I practiced this? What does this look like? And that may reference other materials, but it's also just a great starting place to give you an idea of like, am I missing anything? Right? Because I think that's a big fear that a lot of test takers have is like, all right, I know that I need to prep this. I've been reading these books. I've been doing these quizzes or whatever. What am I missing? And this is a great way to go in and check against that and see what it's recommending. See if there's something, is there a topic or content area that you haven't reviewed? Are you checking things off? So go ahead and explore those. There's a ton of articles in there too on admissions and the application process for all of these exams. So that is one free resource that I definitely want to point you all to. I highly recommend getting access to the official test makers practice materials. So for the MCAT, the AAMC has a whole like practice bundle that is available. If you are going to get something like through Kaplan, we include all of the AAMC materials, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. ETS has some practice exams for the GRE. Get access to those. Make sure that you also do a practice test at the start. Before you start fully studying and everything, it's really important to do a full-length practice test, because that is going to, one, orient you to the timing of the test. This is what you need to get used to with how long you're sitting in front of your computer, because these are all digital tests. How long are you sitting there? What does that timing look like? Are you running out of time? How difficult are these questions? And it's a really important diagnostic and orientation tool, because it's not about the score that you get at the end. It's about what is the data that this test experience is giving you. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? And why? You can totally just tank at this practice test, but that gives you so much information about the areas that you knew, the areas that you didn't, content that you need to go and study more of, and guiding you through the rest of your study experience. People who are like, okay, I know I need to take this test, I'm going to start studying for it. That's great. I'm not gonna say that they're doing everything wrong, but they're not doing it as efficiently as possible, right? There is definite strategy here and data gathering that is so important in guiding you for how to be strategic about this. I like to think of all test prep as picking fruit off of a tree. So if you imagine, I don't know why my brain has a grapefruit tree in my head. I grew up with tons of grapefruit trees in my yard. And so as kids, we'd run out and we'd just like pick grapefruit and we'd have it for breakfast, and like, it was great. But I picture this big grapefruit tree, and as a short little kid, there's certain fruit that you can just like reach up and grab off the branches, right? And then as a short little kid, you can scramble up the tree and climb out, and like there's certain ones on the higher branches that you can get. And then there's other ones that are at the tippy top that you want to try and get, but you need extra tools. Test prep is kind of like that. As you're going through this and you've got a set amount of time, you want to make sure that you're grabbing all the fruit off the low branches, right? And then you want to figure out, okay, what are the harder things that I want to get? And then if you run out of time, you want to be able to step back and look at the tree and say, oh, that's a low hanging fruit I could have grabbed. Or that's one that if I jump from this branch to this branch, I could have grabbed that. And oh, here's how I can be strategic and like build myself a ladder to get these higher ones, right? What is the data that you are able to get, and look at what you've done and what you still need to get to be successful. So that's my little anecdotal encouragement story for how to look at the questions you're getting. But that's part of why taking this first practice test is so important. It's going to give you so much information. So I like to think of test prep in 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is where everybody starts. Everybody starts saying, I know I need to prep for this. Let me go to the website. Let me go to the, like, what free materials. Does my advising office have like some free books that I can borrow, or other materials? Like, there are plenty of places to go get resources. Kaplan is one of them. I mentioned we have free practice tests. We have those study guides. Come check us out. We get as much free info as you possibly can. Everybody starts here. Everybody says, okay, I need to do some prep. I need to figure this out. Tier 2 is where a lot of people say, like, they start off in tier 1 and they're like, I'm getting all of this and I'm realizing that I need more help than I'm able to provide for myself. And that is a normal thing, right? Maybe it's a matter of structure. I need something that, like, once a week I'm going and I'm taking this class and it's helping me understand what I need to, the strategies. I'm seeing someone who's an expert at this do it, and I'm able to then mimic it, and you're trying to get more help. And then there's tier 3. And this is, again, a place that some people in tier 2 are like, I need even more help than this. I need someone sitting down next to me and explaining this to me in a language I can understand. Or I need something that is going to be super intensive. All of these are going to prep you for test day. Absolutely. But it's also a matter of, in that context of that whole journey of where it is we're trying to go, what are the resources and which of these is going to give you the access to the material that is going to make it as stress-free as possible for you. I like to say that test prep shouldn't be stressful. I've said that, and I literally had someone roll their eyes at me on camera, like they couldn't contain themselves. And I say that because I don't believe that test prep should be something where you are losing sleep, you are skipping class, you are missing meals, you are you're wearing yourself ragged, right? It should not be something that is stressful. You should feel confident that you have the resources, that you have the schedule, and the stress that exists should be mental. Am I learning this? Am I retaining this? Like that can be stressful, but it should not be something that is affecting our day-to-day lives, right? It should be something that you're able to build in a way that is sustainable is my mantra with it. So in tier one, this is where getting something like a book set lives. You get a set of books because, and I'll say this for anyone who's prepping for any test, don't use your textbooks to prep, because what is in your textbooks is way more than what you need for testing, right? If your chemistry book is this big, you're only going to have this much that's actually tested on the MCAT, right? So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you're getting access to materials that narrow it down just to what is tested on the exam. That this is something where it's important to know what exam changes have happened, because what I have on here is our most recent 7th edition. But if you have someone who took it and has a 2015 edition, you don't want that. But a 2019 edition, it's going to still have all the science in there that you need, right? So figure out who in your network has materials that you can ask for a hand-me-down. Even if it's not the most up-to-date thing, that is okay. If you're staying in tier one, getting access to the materials that are still relevant to the test you're going to be taking is adequate. That is my recommendation. If you're moving up into tier two and you're getting like a course, you'll get the brand new set, and that will then correspond with all your other materials. So you will be good there. But if you're staying in tier one, that is one way that you can save some money. Another thing that people will do who are staying in that tier one is get access to something like a QBank. Our QBanks are designed to work with you and provide you harder questions the more you use it. So it'll start you off in easier things. And this is a way that you're not just reading about it, you're then putting into practice what you've been studying. So this is another tier one level thing of, okay, I'm quizzing myself on this content. What am I getting right? How long did I take on this question? And being able to do analysis on actual content. Tier 2 and 3 are where I put these. So our live online class and our on-demand are what I put in tier 2. This is where you have structure, you have way more resources. This is where you're able to dive in and get a lot more out of everything that you're getting. So that would include the QBank, like I mentioned. That includes the most up-to-date version of the books. The live online is live classes that you can go in and join and ask questions. We staff our classes with more than one teacher. So there's always someone that you can have a side chat with about questions that you have. Our on-demand and our live online come with our channel, both for MCAT and for GRE. The channel is, I jokingly will call it Test Prep Twitch, because like 3 hours a night, we have our teachers go on there and they're doing review on different content areas, different difficulties of questions, different sections of the test. And so it's not class. This is where you can customize. Oh, I know that I'm really struggling in this verbal questions at the GRE. And see that that's coming up tonight on the channel. I can go join in that for like the 2 hours that they're covering that. And that's more live instruction that you have access to beyond just the class time. And that's available in the on-demand. On-demand is not a class, it's asynchronous classes. So you're able to watch those videos on your own time. You don't have to build a schedule in, but that channel is still available for you for live instruction. Tutoring and bootcamp are where I put that tier 3, where you're trying to get as much help as possible. So if you know that maybe your GPA wasn't that great and you're trying to get a really phenomenal MCAT score to like help make up for it, that's where those resources are. That can be something where it's for a specific area of the test or for the test as a whole, like you're just trying to get guidance on the entire exam. Kaplan's been around for 8 decades. I like to say that because it means that we've really figured out how to work with students. We've really honed in on our prep materials. We know what needs to exist to help guide you through the whole process and what students need to customize that individually. We don't believe that there's a cookie cutter prep that every single person is going to fit into and do just fine. Everyone is coming with different strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to skip here. When it comes to actually reviewing your practice. So again, you're going to be taking full length practice tests, both from like Kaplan has free ones that I can give you the URLs for, but also from the official test maker, right? When you are doing them, you want to make sure you are being really organized and reviewing every single question. This here, we're going to be talking about ones you get wrong, but it's also important to evaluate the ones you got right, because sometimes we just guessed lucky, right? It's a multiple choice test. Odds are not like you have at least a 20% chance of guessing right. So just because you guessed right does not mean that you know the content. And that can be a really good flag for something you still should review. So next time you know, and you know that it's right as you're moving forward, right? So make sure you're reviewing every single question. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? Why? Post phrasing is one of the ways that you can look at a question and establish what happened. Because getting a question wrong is not just, I got the question wrong. There's two things that happen. First, you were seduced by the wrong answer. And that may be something that like you really thought it was the correct one and you got it, you picked the wrong thing. Or it could just be, I wasn't sure and I picked something else, okay? But what is it? You were seduced by the wrong answer and also you rejected the right answer. Those are the two things that are happening when you get a question wrong, right? So it's important to evaluate that of why was I tempted by this wrong answer? And then why did I reject the right answer? Because answering both of those are going to help you evaluate the error in your brain that occurred and how you can retrace that into a correction, right? For next time. So make sure you're asking yourself that, be intentional about that. Then you go and check it against the explanation. So this is from a practice MCAT exam. We added our explanation afterwards. So you want to first evaluate what happened here and then check it against the explanation, because that's just going to help solidify that correct thinking moving forward. Another thing, and this is a totally free thing that you can do because all you need is Excel or Google Sheets, but be organized in your review. We call these why I missed it sheets. Be intentional about your why I missed it sheets, because this is going to show you patterns that you may not pick up on otherwise. As you're going through and you're noting questions you got wrong, or possibly you note a question that you got right that you just happened to guess right, add those in here. You be intentional about what test was it that you did, what section, what was it for the MCAT, was it discrete or passage based? Because there's a lot of passage based questions on the MCAT. What was the content? What is it testing you on? And then what is it that you evaluated, that why you missed it? What was that analysis from your post phrasing? As you go through and you do this, you're going to notice patterns. What content area would this student need to practice more on to get more answers right?
They would need to brush up on chem and physics.
Not just chem and physics, but like what content area? Because looking at these content areas, they got 3 questions wrong in carbohydrates. So if they studied up in carbohydrates, then they could possibly grab 3 more questions next time. Like this is showing them the specific content areas that, oh, if I go and study this more, I'm going to have a better time next time, right? So it's being intentional about what are the content subjects that I am missing, because carbohydrates didn't know the content, misread necessary passage detail. So all 3 of those are ones that if they had studied up on that content more, they could have gotten 3 more questions right. The best way to get a better score on any test is to get more questions right, right? So if you're strategic about how you can grab as many as possible, that can really help you spend your time wisely as you're doing your content review and your quizzing. So try and look and find those patterns as you're working through. So when it comes to all of this, as you're figuring out what your prep looks like, what resources you need, it's also really important to figure out what schedule you need to follow for this. So I mentioned I prefer to think about prep in a number of hours than a number of weeks or days. The weeks and days usually are the amount of time that people put those hours into, but that's going to vary depending on person. Someone who is taking 15 credit hours one semester, or I'm not sure how it works with your quarter system, but they're taking a lower class load, they're not working, they've maybe got like one club that they're only kind of engaged in, that kind of thing. It's going to vary very differently from someone who's taking a heavy class load, is working a part-time job, has to watch their siblings after school. Those are all things that are going to play into availability of time. So it's important to figure out what your availability is, because that's going to help you figure out and track back on what runway you need to set up for yourself. Again, I work in visuals. My brain always thinks of it as a runway. Some planes need a much longer runway for takeoff. Others need a shorter one. So how many hours are you able to actually commit to in a week that is feasible and a reasonable amount that is not going to cause you stress? And is that something you can stick with? Because that is also going to then determine when you need to get started. So for example, this is in a standard session, I have a bad calendar that we go through and we start fixing. But we'll just start by what it looks, building it up from scratch. As you're figuring out your study calendar, the first thing you want to put in, and I highly recommend get used to using if you're a written person, have your written planner out there. I'm a big Google Calendar fan. They know where I've been for every day for the last 8 years or something like that. Put in what your professional commitments are. When is class? When do you have appointments? When have you committed to volunteering? Those are like professional commitments that you can't move. You've committed to them, or they are something that you are not able to adjust in your calendar. I've put in these darker green blocks. These are something that technically could adjust in your calendar, but they cannot be deleted. This is important to make sure you're staying up and studying for your other classes that you have going on, right? Do you have midterms coming up? These might be bigger. If you needed to move them to a different day or adjust it, okay, but make sure that they are not something that is deleted. This student has decided to sign up for an MCAT class because they know that they're in that tier 2. They want an MCAT class that's part of that structure and prepping them. So that's in here too. It's something that they can't change when that happens. They want to make sure that's in their calendar. So this is about 28 hours of professional commitments. This may be a lot more for you. It may be less for you, but it's a good visual to get started. Then you add in your personal commitments, because we're not test prep robots. We need human interaction. We need to go to the gym and get exercise. We have these other experiences in our life that we don't want to just cut out when we're in the stage of test prep, right? So this may be a pre or post-COVID calendar, I will admit. Thank goodness people are getting vaccinated and some of these activities are more available. I'm getting my second vaccine next weekend. I am so excited. But, beach day, dinner with your parents, going to the gym, put these things in your calendar too. They're important for your mental well-being. They're important for your physical well-being. So make sure you're not neglecting those. If you need to cancel something or reschedule something here, okay, but plan that into your calendar as a standard. If something comes up and it has to be adjusted, that's fine. But keep that in mind that these are still really important for you in your day-to-day life. But then we can see where the gaps are in our lives, right? That we can start putting in study blocks. So this is what it would look like for someone prepping for the MCAT. You might be looking at this and saying, that's a lot of purple, but that's okay, because that tells you, okay, I would need to do less. This is someone who's prepping for 24 hours for the MCAT. They're probably doing a 3-month study timeline to try and cram 300 hours in. That may not be feasible for everyone. So knowing that, saying, okay, maybe I could commit to 15 hours a week. If I have 15 hours a week and I've got 300 hours that I need to do, then I'm looking at 20 weeks that I need to be preparing, right? That helps you figure out, okay, this is about when my prep needs to really get started, and I'm being super intentional with what my timeline looks like. This is going to look different for the GRE, of course, with the different content areas. But the 4 important things to consider when you're planning out your prep: you want to make sure you have plenty of breaks. That includes a break day where you don't have anything going on. Give your brain a break entirely on one day of the week. Be specific about what is going on in your prep. So every single one of these blocks has something specific that it is occupying. Are they reading chapters from their books? Are they doing a quiz? Are they watching a video in their resources? What is it that they are spending that time doing? Having these classes is going to help structure that with pre-class and post-class homework. But this is still something that you can figure out and in your study plan, how to be specific with the material that you're trying to focus on. You waste a lot of time and energy trying to figure this out in the moment. So trying to planning this out, saying, okay, I'm going to study these things, I'm going to do these quizzes, I'm going to practice this. Putting that into your calendar is going to help make things a lot more intentional. Restructure it if you have to. Switch out what you are going to be specific on in later days, but try and be intentional and specific with the blocks that you're putting into your calendar. Make it realistic. This is going to be this is far more realistic than in my bad calendar that I like to show other times. But if what this looks like is totally unrealistic to you, make sure that you're making your calendar something that is sustainable and that you can stick with. It's probably not very likely that for 5 hours every night, you're going to be able to do test prep. How can you actually fit this into your day and your life in a way that is something you can carry forward that isn't going to cause burnout? Breaks is another big part of that. Actually stepping away and giving yourself like a time away from what you're learning is a good way to help prevent burnout. And then I am a big proponent that you should not have 4-hour blocks of time. The only time you should ever have anything more than 4 hours is if you're doing a full length test. And you won't have that if you're doing the GRE. MCAT, you will. But anything more than 4 hours, have a big break in here. So on Saturday, they've got a lot of stuff going on, but they've got several hours of break in between. So that is something that's feasible. Some people are like, yeah, I'm going to go to Starbucks and sit there for 7 hours and just keep getting refills on my iced coffee and study for my MCAT. I'm like, it's a plan. Is it a good one? I don't know. Maybe you're the one of the tiny percentage who can do that and it'll be effective. But generally speaking, you want to make sure you're limiting the amount of time that you're studying, because otherwise it's just going to start burning holes in your brain and you're not going to actually get out of it what you need to. The title of this is Prepping on a Budget. So here's some of my tips for saving money on prep. Firstly, tuition assistance. Kaplan has a tuition assistance program. I highly recommend you go and apply for it because students can get up to 60% off the cost of our courses. I'll tag on to this that different clubs on campus sometimes will get scholarship codes that they will then like auction off or have drawings for, that kind of thing. That is another way that you could possibly get your hands on a full comprehensive course for cheaper than what it is on our website. And then you're supporting that club too. So keep in mind, keep your eyes open for those sorts of things. That's another way that you can save some money and be prepared for your test without all the dollar signs attached. Fee assistance, especially for the MCAT. So the AAMC has lowered the eligibility rate for their fee assistance program. So I highly recommend apply for this as early as you can because one, it will lower the registration fee for taking the MCAT. It can give you access to 20 applications getting sent out. So to 20 different schools without costing you anything. It'll give you access to the MSAR, which is an evaluative tool like GPA, MCAT score, admittance stuff. It's a phenomenal tool for planning, and it gives you access to their prep bundle. So if it's something that you can apply for it early because that is a great way to save literally hundreds of dollars. GRE also has fee waivers available. So you can check out their website. They're less comprehensive than the AAMC is, but it's a really great thing to get in there. See if you can get a reduction in the cost of registering to take the test. And if there's anything, I'm not aware of them adding in any practice tests with that, but it's worth looking into and seeing what they can do for you there. Unfortunately, for those who may watch this recording, OAT, DAT, and PCAT do not have any fee waivers available anymore. They stopped offering them this April. But it is something, keep looking in. If there's questions, if you have questions too, it never hurts to reach out and ask the official test makers. They can maybe direct you to other free resources that are maybe just hidden in some corner of their website, or direct you to discount codes that you may not know about. It never hurts to reach out and ask questions to people that are available. Interestingly enough, that may be an email, that may be something else. I know the AAMC is super responsive on Twitter, which is kind of funny. Like Twitter is the first place that they go and they release new test dates in October. Very interesting. So figure out what are the avenues that you can reach out to ask those questions if there's ways that they can point you to save some money, because those things can change on, I don't know what type of basis. I don't think it might be annual basis, week to week basis, who knows, but asking questions never hurts. Finally, don't double pay. So I mentioned Kaplan has the official AAMC materials included in our courses. So if you're considering getting a full Kaplan course, then you don't want to go buy the stuff from AAMC and then come to Kaplan and have the exact same stuff when you've already paid for it somewhere else, because that's built in into the course. It's not something that we can discount the course for you because you already have it. So that is important to know, like, what is it that you're getting and what is it you have and what is it that you're getting and are you buying stuff? That also goes for if you've bought a set of books. I think, Caleb, you mentioned you've gotten a set of books. If you are considering getting a course, are there discounts that they can give you because you have a set? So you've just gotten a recent set, they may be able to discount if you get a course because you already have the book set. So keep that in mind, ask those questions, because that can also be a way to save some money. But that is everything that I have today. It was going to be a little bit longer if we've covered DAT, OAT, PCAT stuff too. But to end off, you guys are here. So if you are interested in signing up for a course, I've been given permission to, if you're ready to sign up within the next 7 days, it's like a 7-day timeline, reach out to me. I can get you 20% off the cost of our courses. That for the MCAT bootcamp is $500 off the bootcamp. If you're interested in trying out a class, which I highly recommend you do, Nina, I will get you a code for GRE. But this is the one I have for MCAT. It's 3 hours that 3 hours for, actually, I think it's 3 hours for both. It is 3 hours for both. The LSAT one is only 2 hours. That's why I get confused. I have too many tests rattling around in my head. But it's some free instruction you can get an idea of some of the strategies, get an idea of some of the information about the test, at the very least. And our teachers are really genuinely love our students. They really want to give them what they need to see them succeed. And finally, you can book time in my calendar. So if you want to talk more one-on-one about what you need and what I can do for you, and what your timeline looks like, or scheduling, or picking out something, feel free to book time in my calendar. That QR code is there and good for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.